So today what we're going to do is we're going to crack the code, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'm here with my good friend, Eric Perez, who is running the show at the Figueroa Team, who did 700 million last year, 2,000 plus transactions, #1 EXP team in the world for real estate transactions. And here's the code we're going to crack. 18 months ago, he was not in the real estate business, didn't come from the real estate business at any point in his career. And he drove this organization, double transactions over that time frame. And I know many that are watching this and listening, so many people are familiar with you because they've seen the work that you have done. But I know that there's many others that are going to watch this and listen to this, Eric, and have a lot of curiosity, because I'm always asked, how do you bring someone from outside the industry? Can you bring someone from outside the industry? I'm with that guy, Eric Perez. My brother, it's great to be with you today, man.
John, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks for everybody that's listening. So this is awesome, bro. This is amazing. So,
let's jump in really quick here. I want to go at this real quick. Give us real quickly a 1 minute, 2 minute of your background before real estate, and then let's just jump right into the meat and potatoes, because you and I could roll for days with just one question. I just go stream of conscious, but give us that really quick, and then we'll jump into the work.
Yeah, so education, I studied computer science at the University of Central Florida. I worked in hospitality technology primarily. So I worked with Hard Rock International, big company there, did a little bit of work with Lockheed Martin. And then I worked at a couple small startups that built tech for hotels and amusement parks and hospitality-based businesses. And I specialized in the data analysis portion of it, the measuring of the actual business. And actually, you know, this is funny, and I know it's a 1 minute excerpt, but my last job before real estate, I was measuring agents. I was measuring front desk agents at hotels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's funny because I just had to take whatever the behavioral metrics were that would make a top sales performance at the front desk, like upselling, incremental revenue, right? How to get the extra, late checkout money, how to get the internet money, how to actually sell, because typically hotels give it for free because those aren't salespeople. So the company that I worked with, the software did all the analysis for it, and we did the baseline analysis to say, hey, you make $10,000 a month in incremental revenue at your front desk. Everything after 10,000, we go 50-50, no cost to you. So I'm going to come in here and improve your sales, right? And then at the same time, we're going to take half of that as an agreement. And we'll do the baseline of what you did for the last 24 months. And that's the number that we typically go off of. So I was measuring agents, just a different kind of agent, a different types of salesperson. So
I love it. So what I want you to hear him say is the principles are universal principles. So how did Veronica find you, and tell me what your thoughts were when she approached you with the opportunity?
It was a lot of good and bad timing in a lot of ways, because it was during COVID. So like I said, I was at a startup company. So it's literally all because of COVID, Chet. For all the bad it's done in the world, I think it's done a lot of good. It's really in perspective too, and that's not to be trying to be mean to those that lost their life or had bad effects from it. I had it myself, you had it yourself. It wasn't fun. We both know that. But it did change the world, I think, for the better in a lot of ways. But so because of COVID, I was at a startup company. It was 20% of the company was owned by a big, I'm not going to say the name, a big investment fund that invested in these small startup companies, about $32 billion fund, and they owned 28% of the company. So we were living off of Series A, B, C, D funding, right? Basically how it was. So when COVID happened, they pulled their book saying, we're going to reevaluate everything. What are we going to go in with? What are we going to go out with? So, there's a compensation change for myself. So, and at the time I was the director. So I was like, cool, whatever. So they were like, in exchange, we'll give you a day off. I'm like, I'm taking Friday off, right? So I'm like, cool, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I got a 3-day weekend now, even though I worked all the time because our developers are in India. So I was constantly up 5:30 every morning, because I led about 50 developers at the time. I got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and I quickly realized we're in freaking lockdown. It doesn't matter how many days I have off. I can't do anything, So I was like, well, I might as well make some money. So I started contracting, right? I did some contract work. So did some contract work, this and that. Was a couple of my friends back at Hard Rock, a couple of my other friends that left Hard Rock and went to other. That's a whole other story. But basically, Hard Rock changed the location, the headquarters from Orlando to South Florida. So all the people that I knew there all dispersed in different companies, right? So now I know the head of marketing at JCPenney's. I know one of the top guys at Godiva. I know a guy, like I got so fortunate all these things happen. So they're like, oh, dude, we'll contract you. They're just like giving me money basically because, working in Excel. So I got really lucky there. So I did that for a while. And then the only place that was open in Florida was the beach. So a really good friend of mine, she's still on the team, I've known her for like 10 years. Her name is Isis. I think you know who she is.
Sure.
We went with our group of friends. We went to the beach, and she was already working with Veronica at the time. So she was like, "Let's stop at my boss's house on the way up." I'm like, no. Like, we went to the beach. We had fun. I want to go home. Like, I don't want to hang out with your real estate parties and peoples. I don't like that. You know that. Why are you making me do this? And then they quickly realized I'm not the one driving, so none of it really even matters. So I tried to plead my case, didn't work, so we stopped over there, and the first person I met was Shaheem and Tony. They came up, super warm, super good people, came in there like, hey, you want a beer? I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks, I don't really drink. And then I went out and we walked on the beach, and I just literally there by myself, like separated from the group. I was like just standing there looking at the ocean. I'm like, when will this hell be over? Like, when can we go home? Like, so Veronica, being Veronica, just walks right up to me and goes, what's your name? I'm like, I'm Eric. Like, what do you do? I was like, I do data analysis for a living. And she's just like, tell me more. And I unpacked it. And she was like, and at the time, ECC's role was in the compliance of like the financial compliance, like transactional compliance, right? So I met with them. We talked about doing some contract work. We got this little Flex account, which, it's all analytics at that point. Zillow was very heavy on that. So I was like, well, I need somebody like you to help me out. And I was just going to help them hire somebody. And then then EC sent me 1 month's worth of transactional data for me to visualize, where we're selling the most houses, price went. And I'm like, you guys make this much money selling houses? I was like, this is how much money you can make. I was completely, I'm like a nerdy guy. I still don't even own a house, John. I know nothing about real estate. So I was like, you guys make a decent amount of money, like amount of money selling houses. I'm like, this is a couple $100,000, I'm like, interesting. I was like, okay. And then I'm like, how many employees? Are like 9 or 10 at the time. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Like, I don't understand how this whole thing works. So I saw it, I visualized it, I walked it through a demo, just strictly based on the data. And she was like, yeah. So I was contracting with them, and I was working Friday, Saturday, Sunday for a little bit. And then the investment firm at my previous job actually bet on the company I was with. So they gave us our funding back. So they were like, but they took a bigger percentage of the company, which is why this is really important to know this. So instead of 28, they went to 36%, right? So what did that do? The equity that I was going to get in 1 year was given to them in order to be funded. So my pathway to partnership was no longer available. Okay. So when I was like, hey, but I'm still going to go work. I've worked on this project for 3 years now. Like, I can't let it go. It's my baby. And Veronica was like, what would it take for you to come on full time? And I was like, what? Like, I have no idea. And so we went, and I literally did all the math in my bills. I was like, you know what? I've learned something my whole life is that a lot of people think they never get their break, but it's typically because they got that opportunity, but they never walked through the door. So it's not that you didn't get your break, you just didn't recognize it. So I'm like, you know what? The reason why I got the FP, like the company I was at before, was because some dumb luck, and I walked through that door and turned out to be great 3 years later. Hard Rock, I got to Hard Rock. My mom's neighbor, we're walking, we have the same type of dog. I met him, he got me into Hard Rock. Just random moments in my life. I'm like, you know what? I got it. Like, you got to walk through that door and present yourself. So I was like, screw it, I'll do it. Like, I'm an engineer. Worst things worse, I'll just go back to doing some of that work. And I was also like a little bit jaded because I didn't have my pathway to partnership anymore, right? And I understood why it made sense business wise, but I also had a fundamental issue that like every time a big decision was made at the previous company like that, you'll see all the suits walk up to the office upstairs, and they'll walk there, they'll talk, and then I used to be like, I want to be in that room, because like I know what to do, right? Like, oh, of course, everyone knows I know what to do, and obviously learning now, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I was like, I want to make the decision, right? Because they're going to walk out, and what they decide is going to impact us all, everybody here that's working today. So I was like, I want to be in those rooms. I want to do that. So I looked at the opportunity with Veronica as a small company, smaller company from where I was, and I was like, all right, I did my math, my bills. I'm like, dude, you got to pay me this much money so I can just survive, and we'll figure the rest out later, and we'll just see where this goes. And at the time I was cocky because it was COVID. So we're remote work. So I knew I have like, if worst things worse, I was like, hey, just kidding. I'm coming back, guys. You know, there was no like huge logistical nightmare to get me back employed anywhere else. So that's what happened. So then I took the job, Chep, and then 3 months later, I got promoted to vice president. And then 5 months later, I got the COO position. And then now, you know, continue to grow. And now the company, I think it was 9 employees. We have like 27 now, 70 agents. We're doing hundreds of deals a month on average. So it's just, it's been a crazy, like June will be my 2 years. So it hasn't even been 2 years.
June will be 2 years?
June will be 2 years, yeah.
I want to ask you one question that I want to ask one question, then I want to go back and unpack the trajectory of time, because I've been fortunate enough to know you since day one. And it seems like forever, because, you know, friendship builds when you get to work with someone. Outside of your work ethic, your competency and discipline, let's say that we took a duplicate, a copy of Eric, and we put Eric in a different organization. Okay. And I love what you said. You know, you're still figuring it out. We all are. Veronica is. Each one of us every day. But you take, because we see the results that have taken place, and your fingerprints are on that, of course, too. You take the equal person that's from outside the industry, because this is what I want people to really get, and comes into your role, same type of leader, sort of. And a guy like you's more than making it, but they're bringing someone in, that leader is, and that person doesn't make it. And yet they've got your same competency, discipline. What would you say to a leader, knowing what you know now, talking to, because here's the thing, you're one of my coaches, by the way. If you guys, I'm sure you will hear some things that really intrigue you as far as getting your operations in line. Eric is one of my elite coaches with Cheplak Select. You can go to eric.cheplaklivecoaching.com and do a discovery call with him. What do you think, in talking to these CEOs and seeing people that come from outside the industry, why is it that you've more than made it? And why do you think that other leaders that bring employees in from other industries that are highly competent, great track record, why don't they make it? What would you say to a leader?
It's two things. So one is actually, it's myself, right? It's my ownership mentality, right? I was taught, my previous boss, his name is Patrick O'Connell, was my CTO, my previous company. He preached on ownership, you know, and like, so when I go to work every day, I think it's my company before it is. And that's a mindset thing that's very important, right? So I make decisions based on the business, not myself. I'm emotionless when there. And second thing is Veronica Figueroa and people like you, Chep, because I've been to every freaking training that you could imagine. And I have the phone, I have more millionaires in my phone now in the last 18 months of successful business people than I have had in 6 years of my career. So like the expedited learning curve, it really what it is. It was that I was put in those rooms every day. I got to meet with Dan Beer and his team. I flew out to Phoenix my first 3 months and met with George Lawton, who had the biggest flex count at the time. Veronica invested in me from day one because she knew that she had to expedite my learning curve. And then, so a lot of the people that bring that outside skill set to come in, and you're not investing in the education of that person, no matter how skilled they are, they're not going to get it. Because like the Figueroa team is not some abstract one of a kind thing. It's a piece of a bunch of other models that I got access to. That's all it really is. So you're going to have to, you got to open up your piggy bank to pay someone like myself. I'm not going to lie to you. It's an investment, but then you have to reinvest as well in that, you know, and get the training and the knowledge and, you know, and force it, because if it was up to me, I wouldn't have done it. Veronica was mad at me.
Let me go further. I want to go to it too, because it's sure this is my podcast, but the one thing that I do is I talk about abundance, but I speak it. And one of the key coaches for you, another coach in the industry, Mike Gerbic, I think has been a key factor. I've coached Eric since he got in the business. Mike Gerbic, I think has been a critical, and it wasn't, I think, the thing that I want people to hear, and this isn't about Mike. Mike's great from everything I hear about Mike, but it wasn't just, okay, you get a little bit. I mean, it's not just invest and send them to a class. It's continual engagement and investment too in the coaching.
100%. And funny you said that, because I was in Cabo with Mike, right? I just got back in town. I ran 4 miles with him in the morning, and he was like ultra marathon runner or whatever. And it's like, we talked about it, and it's like with you and it's just they'll pour into you as long as you do what you're supposed to do. So at the end of the day, my accountability factor with Mike and even yourself is so high, because I can't just be like, oh, I'm tired from the gym. Like, we all work out. We all grind our asses off every day. Like, we all work infinite hours. We all have businesses to run, and it's like, I'm not you, but I understand it. So I'm not coming to you with any nonsense, So the continuing education is for me is a lot about accountability. And like I said, Mike's business that he had back in Kansas is nothing like our business. He didn't even play with Zillow at the time. There was no Zillow at the time, but it's not about mirroring what he built. It's just having that expertise to go to every single time I need to, and every single time. And I've realized, because I put so much into what you guys teach me, you're always available for me. And I don't know if that's for every client. I'm not going to say it is or it isn't, but I'm not calling you to BS. I don't want to say any bad words. I'm not calling you. I have a legitimate issue that I need to solve. I have a legitimate problem I need to solve. And sometimes they don't even give me the answer. Sometimes you just tell me, make a decision. This is what I think, this and that. I remember when Chase made that mistake on Twitter, you were like, get rid of him. And I was like, no, I know what you're saying, protect the business, but I'm going to coach him through this, and we did. So it's just I don't always do what they say, but I need that level of reinforcement. I'm not looking for someone to agree with me. That's the biggest problem in coaching. It's no, I don't agree with you. I'm going to tell you what I think. If you do something different, go ahead. No harm, no foul. I'm still here for you when you need me. So yeah, I think that's a big part. And Mike's a great guy, and what he does. Yeah.
What's so crazy is, after this long, I don't think, maybe we met quick in Cabo last year, but I haven't had the opportunity. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I haven't had the opportunity to spend time with him, but I will. So everyone, I just want you to hear that. And it's 99% of the time when someone fails that you bring in, never works, bring someone in from outside the industry. No, you did not invest in them. You didn't invest in them, and you didn't continue to invest in them. So tell me this, you came in from outside the industry, and here is the real estate industry. What were your first discoveries? And it's not like some giveaway that this was the secret. Oh, you wouldn't believe what was going on in Veronica's organization. It's everywhere. What did you find out about the real estate industry when you came and dug in and, looked under the hood?
I say this, money hides mistakes. All these rainmakers and their nice stuff and all their expensive things. And it's always typically what I have and not what I'm missing. And that mentality is 100% wrong. Right. So and that's most teams, most teams. And second, it's the ego, man. You guys, I humble Veronica and everybody every day. I don't care you did 3,000 transactions. I don't care you sold $1 billion real estate. In the world of business, you are a blimp on the radar, period. Period. You are not that important, you're not.
And I can see Veronica going
100%. She was and I think it's the ego that drives insecurities that won't even allow most of these team leaders to look at themselves and say, I need to correct this. And I don't ever take credit for Veronica's journey. You know it. I'm not going to sit here and tell her story, but she's one of my biggest inspirations and my biggest mentor, because I was there the day she decided to make a change at your event, January 28th. You know, I think it's 2 years ago now. Oh no, it was about 18 months ago. So I was there and I watched her grow, and it became very apparent that she knew she needed to do this, right? And have the vulnerability and the humility and look at herself and understand that I'm in nowhere near perfect to make those changes. And I think, you know how many arguments I've had with people? This is so funny. It's just so funny. I'm like, yeah, I think this is the best CRM. And they're like, no way, man. I used this one, da, 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 da. 3 months later, hey, how hard was it for you to transition? Right? So it's like, you would even hear why I think this is a better piece of technology for your business until you were pushed to the point where you had to find another solution for your business. And it's just because the ego, they don't want to admit that they made that. Like, the first person that admits they're wrong is always going to win, in my opinion, because that means they're open and they're receptive to change. So I think, number one, money hides mistakes. Number one, massive. So all you rainmakers with your G-Wagons and this and that, how much money are you actually leaving on the table? Okay, that's the question you should be answering, not how much money is in my bank account, because that is stupid. For lack of a better word, that is pointless. And then the second part to it is that you're wrong. Just wake up every day with that mentality that you're wrong. In jiu-jitsu, we call it white belt mentality. Like, you can always learn something new. And, you know, those are the two things I think that hold most people back that I see in real estate. It truly, truly is. And then, you know, the last part of it that I think is insane to me is that, you know, the model that works is the one you commit to. People are like, oh, I hate Zillow. Oh, I do this. Oh, I do that. Like, why does that even matter? Like, till this day, I don't care. I don't understand why that matters. How you decide to build your business or where you get your leads. Like, that doesn't even matter. Yet they're so adamant on being anti X, Y, or Z. It's like, oh, I'm an Apple or I'm an iPhone user, not an Android user. It's both a cell phone. Like, it's a cell phone. You know, so it does the same exact thing. So it just, those are like kind of like the three things that I like think about. And then the last part of it is you're not really realizing you're a business owner, not an agent anymore. The agent mentality. That's the part that you just have to rip off. Like, you got to get rid of that so aggressively and get to it immediately. And that's, I think that was my biggest strong suit, because I could literally care less about your offer. You know, me, I can care less about your offer. I do not care. I don't care about your appraisal graph. I don't care about any contingencies on the deal. Like, I'm not here for that. I'm here to run a business. So you can give me your excuses, but, you know, I don't care. Like, I just don't. It doesn't matter to me. And maybe because I'm never in the agent's shoes to a lot of extent, which is where Veronica gives me the support, and Chase and Harold and Isis and all the people that I work with. And I didn't do this, Chap. Like, we did this. Like, you know, like I have a tremendous team, and they do so many things that I could not do, you know, and we do it dynamically, and it's amazing. But get rid of the agent mentality. You're a business owner. Okay. Once you decide to say that, I think a lot of other things change as well, but you have to look at that first. You have to be willing to stop putting your personal expenses in the business. Stop doing these things that are like very negligent to what a traditional business owner would never do. But since you came from an agent, you just still think you're running a gun and selling real estate, but you're not. You're a bit. I don't care if you have 5 agents. I don't care if you have 50. You're a business owner, so treat it like one. So yeah, really, those are my recommendations. Yeah,
really awesome. And I think the common theme goes back to when we started. We talked about the similar principles from when you were working with the agents before you started working with these agents. What was one of the first things that first action steps, the big one? Choices you made, input you gave, an action step that you saw that had to be taken in the operations when you came in that I think had, let's go for this, had the biggest impact over time, but was most challenging?
Conversion rate, and then holding people accountable to it. I don't care what anybody says. It's the most effective thing, because I came in here, Veronica's like, these are my list of top producers. I did my analysis. I gave them the list. It was like, I was like, right? I don't think so. They're like, I'm like, why? They've been with me for 6 years. They've been with me for 5 years. They're top. I'm like, but why do you say that? Based on what? Your opinion? because that is not anything that holds no weight anywhere, an opinion, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't hold any weight. Show me the facts, show me the data. So when you flip on the conversion rate, you really realize how effective your lead sources are. You realize how effective, and I'm going to talk about that real quick on lead sources, because it's not the lead, it's your method of sales, number one, if it's not working out for you. So your lead sources, your agents, right? And then also, typically, I think is very important. You want to measure conversion by lead source, agents, and you also want to measure, well, I think is the behaviors that go into it as well, right? So I can predict that 45 days now from an agent joins a team, what the trajectory will be 6 to 8 months from now. 100%. Not about.
Say that again. I want everyone to hear that. Say that again.
And in 45 days, we used to have a 90-day check-in chat, because that's just a standard. Not right. That's what real estate says. In 90 days, you need to do like 90 days. It's like this. Where the hell did you come up with this ambiguous shit from? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so at 45 days, based on just behavioral activities, you can see someone's trajectory going forward 6 to 8 months from now. I know where someone's going to be. So we start letting agents go at 45 now. They go on a PIP, a performance improvement plan, and they got 2 weeks to turn it around, and 98% of them don't turn it around because you just don't wake up. So anyway, looking at the behaviors to it, if you strictly go off of closings, numbers, stuff like that, it will tell you, I would say, the health of the business in a lot of ways, but it won't tell you where you're going, right? It's really the behaviors that goes into it. And because we do run on a little bit of lag on closing, stuff like that. This business is not a sales one and done. It's not like selling a timeshare. You just get it done, or I'm selling you this, can of water, you get it done. Like, no, like you sell it, get an escrow, then you got to wait out whatever. And if it's new construction, forget it. It's like 9 months now. But conceptually understanding the behaviors and really holding true to that. And then that comes with the final and last challenge that you really need to do. It's the compliance. Because if you're not able to, if they're not using the systems that you have to measure the behaviors, you're not going to be able to hold them accountable or standards. So like the first thing that I did on the team was the compliance aspect. I had a compliance ratio score. So I basically just saw the 9 activities in a database, compared to sales, and I'd grade them 0 to 100%. And then I did it overall for the company. So like I kept on improving that score and pushing compliance and accountability, putting your stuff in the database until we reached about 83%. And then I kind of said like, okay, this is enough data for me to make decisions off of, because if you have a top performer who's putting 4 or 5 deals in a contract every month, but they don't use their CRM, how the hell do you know what it really took for them to get 4 to 5 deals? You don't know. So I used to tell my team, you guys are selfish. You guys are selfish because you're not helping me out, and then I would hold them to that standard. So I think those are a couple of things you can definitely look at. Conversion rate is huge. Buy lead source is huge. And then also behavior metrics and the compliance is very big too.
Really good. Now, here's where it's very interesting, and whereas I observe as we sit here today and as you were discovering those things, because that's easy for anyone to think, okay, yeah, that's natural. But here's where the breakdown happens, is that people will try and implement the standards, hold people to the standard, and then a lot of times they'll do one of two things. They'll cave in so it never changes, or they'll hold to it and there's going to be attrition and growth stops again. You came with your discovery. Okay, here's the data. Here's what has to happen. And then you rolled it. Talk to us about how you rolled it out. What was the pushback? Did you guys lose some people?
Oh yeah.
And how did you continue on regardless? Because a lot of teams, and I know, you were just down at the event there in Cabo. I'll guarantee you, there were team leaders that aspire to be where your organization is asking you, they're stuck. And I'll guarantee you part of they're stuck because they tried to do some, implement standards, and then they got whacked, agents left. And so it just paused them. So talk about, okay, rolling them out. What was the pushback? Are you going to lose people? And how did you keep going?
Yeah. So
that one's a story in itself, right?
Yeah, that's a big story. And I'll tell you, we had some pure advantages because we did have the flex account. So my first layer of standards were making sure the agents that got these leads were following Zillow standards while I was learning what they really should be. And then, I think one of the for a team leader perspective, here's why you freeze. You really don't understand the importance of it. You fail to go deep, understand why you do it. You're doing it because someone else is better than you, that you think is better than you, told you to do it. But you never took the moment to understand and comprehend why it's important. And until you do that, you're just going to be, John said go left, so I'm going left, but John said go right because I'm going right. And I don't know why I'm doing this. So you need to understand, like, what is the importance of that? And, for us, our goal was to build our goal, it's our team goal. I want to build a big business. Like, I want to employ people. Like I do. I want to have 50, 60, 70 employees with 100, 200, 300 agents. Like, you can't scale without accountability and you cannot do it. You cannot, it's impossible to do, right? Without some layers of accountability, right? Throughout your staff, from your agents, everybody needs layers of accountability applied to the business. So, when I implemented it, it was straight like, you won't be on Flex. First things first. You don't get access to leads. That started the chit chat, the nonsense, the calling the Veronica.
Well, let me throw this in. Yeah, let me throw this in too, because I want the visionary to hear this. And do you have visionaries that will come in and maybe rescue and go, well, wait a minute. Talk to us about all that too.
Yeah. So if that's when I said that I have a level of ownership of everything that I do in my life. I believe in, extreme ownership in a lot of ways. So I told Veronica straight up, if you're not gonna let me do my job, I'll work somewhere else. And I think that a lot of people don't have that mentality, but I think that's purpose, right? You don't really know what your purpose is. Like, I think I have a pretty clear one. So I'm not deviating from my path. But with that being said, like, if they're gonna come in, right? And then from my perspective, the team, the visionary comes in, it's my job to explain to them why it's important. The second Veronica understood why, it was the reins were let go. And then it was just free for all. But it was.
And you had attrition. Talk about some of the, because there was attrition. There was pushback, employees and agents. Yep. Talk about the impact and how you experienced that and got through that to continue to grow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not easy. And one thing I'll tell you, and I'll tell everybody here, it's not like a one-time fix, one and done. I continually raise my standards, so I have to re-recruit to them. Right. And most people that come from the old model will not adapt to the new model. They won't. And it comes from a level of comfort. Now, what I've done well at is I'm the most transparent a leader could possibly be to the team. I am so transparent. Like, I use my vernacular, my curse words that I'm not supposed to do. I get in front of my team. I'm just myself, and I tell them why we're doing this, and they buy into that. And their level of connection to me comes from a point that they feel like they're part of this machine that we're building. They're not by themselves. Like, we're doing all this together. So when I have new layers of compliance, I get a lot of people now hopping on board, but you got to understand it, to be brutally honest. But going back to the attrition, yeah, they're going to be so upset and they're going to be so emotional, and you're not going to care at all, is what your reaction should be, and you have to allow them to walk away, or then you have to also be willing to let them go. And, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, but if you have an idea or where you want to go, these are things that have to be done. So it doesn't really matter. So once, I'll give you an example. I went in there and was like, this guy's bad. Started yanking people off of Flex instantly. Like, pause. They were like, oh, my phone's not ringing. I'm like, yeah, because this is not done. You're not making your calls. Like, this is da 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 da. I go through all of it, and they're like, oh, really? So then they'll go and like try to do all their notes and log all their calls and all this stuff real quick. And I'm like, yeah, next month. Yeah, you'll get back on next month. Because these people that did their job, they get the opportunities today. And then, and it's funny because when you make that decision, you might have to make another business change. So when I did that, I immediately have to grow an ISA department because I still needed someone to answer these calls. Right. So what happened was a byproduct that was like, damn, my answer rate's going down. So nothing's perfect, right? but I had to supplement that with ISAs to answer these calls for myself, and then distribute these leads to the agents that were compliant in a lot of ways. So, that was the formation of that department as well at the same time. So first thing I did was with Flex, did that. And then what I started to do as well is get more stringent on my lead control. Like, I was in my database every day. Like right now, my other screen is my database, it's like, and I'm in there looking every day. And I look and I'm constantly doing analysis. I'm constantly running reports. I don't do it as much now because now Harold and Chase have taught them that piece of the business as I scaled and growth. So they handle that. And I just train them every Monday. We meet with them and I train them on, what's the next level of this. But yeah, you got to be willing to pause them. And then you got to be like, you got to put your state, like draw a line in the sand and do not move, and this is where the mentality of a business owner comes in, because your relationship with the individual does not matter what the holistic approach of what we're trying to do here as a business. It just doesn't matter. Not one person matters as much as the business. So that was the first part. And Chep, you said 30% attrition. It was like 38 because I had people leaving and then I was also firing people at the same time. So like these people, and let me tell you, they hated me, but I don't care because I never sold a house. So you don't know what it's like. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, I get that. And I understand that, but these people are able to do it, but you're not. And I'm going to rub with them. I'm deciding to go with them. So I just let people go as they went. And a lot of them let themselves go once they stopped getting access from what they came for, which is typically leads. So once you take away the access, they either turn it around quickly, which I've had great success stories with that as well, or they walk out the door, and that's okay. Because it's like, oh, people ask me how many agents I fired. Like, I've only probably fired like 5 agents. The standards take care of that. Like, we know where you're going, So that's basically it. But you have to do it. And then you have to be, one thing that I tell everybody is like, okay, I'm going to do it once. So you have to be consistent with it. You have to be consistent with it because things will fall through the cracks. They will fall through the cracks, especially if you're growing at the rate that we are, 5 to 8 agents a month. It's tough. But you got to stay consistent of it and you got to recalibrate. And then you need to slowly make those standards a little bit higher and higher and higher and higher, especially in this market, So you got to take action. You got to be consistent with it, and then you got to like put that line in the sand and do not move. Do not move. Stay true to your guns. Stay true to what you're trying to do, your mission. So those are my recommendations.
Well, I want people to hear too. By no means, and I think you gather this in hearing and or watching, is there's no ego in it. I want you to go back to, I think what Eric pointed out is when he shared with Veronica, and I know because I've been in those conversations where it's, hey, listen, I've got to be able to stay in principle. And if you look at this theme, if you're looking for someone like Eric or you're working with someone like Eric, he stays in principle. When he says he doesn't care, he's not going to compromise the principles of the organization, period. So now he took a look at the analytics and the conversion rate and then put standards in place. And then people got to opt out is what he said to you. You didn't have to fire people. When you've got the standards will take care of it. Then you got introduced to, okay, that's cool. You can do that as long as we're recruiting. So what do you think about this business where all these people come in and not a whole bunch of them make it? Talk to us about then the recruiting, because it's part of the equation. You discovered it because the numbers are a result of that. Talk to me about the recruiting process too, because you're a guy from outside the industry.
Yeah. So, that's something that's very consistent and you need to do consistently as well. Everything that's worth doing in your business has to be done consistently. There's no one fix for anything. There isn't. There's not one mastermind. There's not one thing. There is no one fix, but you got to be consistent. Now, it's funny because I have this conversation all the time, John, and it's like, you're recruiting this agent in, oh, this agent isn't good, right? My sales staff, I look at them, I'm like, or are you just shitty at developing people? Which one is it? If it's just like, oh, hit or miss, they're going to be good or not, then why do I even have a sales staff to train? Right? Like effectively, like, no, your job is to develop agents, Right. So when you're constantly recruiting, recruiting and agent and training development have to run in a parallel, like in a parallel track. You must, as you recruit, you need to improve. You need to continually, work on agent development. You have to. You have to. So if recruiting solves a lot of your problems, but listen, nobody gets paid unless a deal closes, right? We're 100% commission-based business. We're some of the roughest, toughest people in any industry, because we're the people that are out there selling are actually hitting the ground running. They're outside sales individuals, right? They're legitimate outside sales individuals. So you need to focus on that development as much as you focus on recruitment, right? Because if you don't do recruitment and you focus only agent development and you bring up these 5-6 agents you have, the second one of them leaves, you just lost 20% of your business, right? So that's why you need to consistently have them both going at the same time. They should run parallel. Like, you don't run an onboarding class and be like, that's it, onboarding's done. Like, this is how we do it. It's their 2 weeks, then they get their check-in. No. What classes are you teaching? Do you have frequently asked question like Vault? We have our FAQ Vault. Like, are you pouring into development? Are you bringing in coaches like Chet to come speak to your team? Are you doing these things to pour into the development of them over and over and over again? Because it doesn't matter if you have a team of 100 if nobody can sell anything, So it really goes in parallel. And I think that a lot of people don't think that. They think they recruit their way out of everything. And you can do that, but then you're just burning the wick on both ends, right? Because it costs more money to bring in an agent than to keep one that's already selling, right? So that's why as you ramp up your recruiting, you need to also focus on your agent development. So that's the one thing that I learned, like, in the hardest way possible, but that's this game. That's the whole game that we're in is all about learning and improving. But it's just a matter of a lot of people think they can, because that's the brokerage model, right? I don't care. I'll recruit my way out of everything, but like, I run a team. Like, I don't have a brokerage model. Like, I don't collect the brokerage fees. I don't get their cap. I don't get any of that. I only make money when somebody transacts, period. And that's where agent development comes into play. So, that's kind of how those are two things that I really think are very important.
Well, there's no irony to this, really. I was on the phone with both Lindahl yesterday morning and Angela. Okay. And we were talking exactly about that, marrying that recruiting process and sales process. So, constantly, as they're scaling and as you're scaling, that's what you're talking about. But you can't have one, you out recruit the sales process. You're going
it dilutes it. You dilute the sales process, which you end up doing. You dilute it, and then you realize, well, I don't have any money. And then you spend all this money bringing people in, and then they're not selling any real estate. I got people that come in that do 6 to 8, deals in escrow within 60 days, like, legitimately. I have a girl that came in to close 32 deals in 7 months. She had experience from the outside. She had experience from the outside industry. She was an agent before, but when she came into here and with our programs, and we rocket fuel, like, boom, And then, but that's because we pour into that so heavily, man, and that's super, super, super important. And I have the best staff in the world. It might be, obviously, I'm biased, but they care about these agents winning. Like, they care deeply, So, and then they put so much effort into it. When an agent doesn't do what they ask, they care just as much of getting them out the door. Because I always tell them that. I'm like, do not wait for me. You don't need my approval. I trust you guys to the point, but you know what we want. You know what we're looking for. The data's, the standards are there. You know how to run the reports. You take action.
Talk about, Eric, let's go there. And thank you on that articulation. We've talked about conversion, and then standards, and then you've got attrition, and then the recruitment and the sales process. If you look at it, we're unpacking a bunch of stuff, certainly at a high level as much as we can here. Well, let's talk about this one because it comes up all the time, Eric. How have you been able to, because most staff people, employees, they don't like growth. Oh, great, more work for us. I don't know if you've experienced that one. How have you been able to bring, because great. The agents are making more money. They're selling more houses, but there's more work for us. And listen, to scale a business, okay, great. Everyone across the board, certainly we want to reward people, and certain people are in incentives, some aren't. How have you done that? How many employees? Tell us right now, how many employees do you have right now, Eric? And then how many roughly VAs around you and where the business is at today?
25 employees right now. Then we have up to 7 VAs right now.
Okay, good.
So every department has around 2 VAs. So marketing has VAs, sales has VAs, and operations has VAs. So we're at 7. We're at 7, and then I have an acquisitions department too. That's a whole other thing. We could talk forever about that. But the guy who runs the acquisitions, he has his own VA as well. So it's 7 because we have many businesses within this.
How have you kept people as the business has grown, which requires more of people? I mean, you got to ask more of people, and it doesn't always mean you're going to get a whole bunch more money. And then talk also to maybe some people that didn't want, not bad people, did good work, but didn't want to come along for the ride. That the company kind of outgrew them.
So, people use this word culture very different, very like, we have a culture, but like, it's the culture, it's this, it's rainbow. Well, let me tell you about my culture. I have a culture of productivity. Okay. Like they get emails from me at midnight, 1 a.m. to it. Like I'm always available for that. I'm always available for them. I have a culture of productivity, as much as I possibly can, John, I walk the walk as much as I talk the talk, because it's truly about leadership. Right. And I think that that's my biggest learning lesson. I'm just like, why don't these people do what I say? I'm crying about it. It's like, well, who the hell's holding them accountable? It's me. So the same process that goes on the agents for accountability goes on the staff. Like, it's not rocket science. And then also, we've accomplished a lot of great things, John, like #1 team in EXP, and that's all due to the staff. But that's because we know where we're going. When the first year, I didn't even work a full year at the Figueroa Team, we closed 794 deals, right? Last year, we closed 2,174. Okay. This year is the trajectory for it. Even with the losses of the offers, I'll be very blatantly honest with you guys, we're still on pace for 1,450 right now. Wow. We're still on pace for 1,450. Yeah. And I'm predicting it's going to be higher than that, because Q1 numbers are typically skewed because the business is so soft during Q1 historically. So that's what we're still on pace to do. Now, with that being said, they have to know their goals, because not everybody, some people, my sales department, every single body in my sales department is incentivized based on the sale of the house. My agent onboarding specialist, first 3 deals, as long as they're executed within the first 90 days, she gets a piece of that. Right. So, and it's not like a 2%, 3%, it's 250 ahead. So every time an agent comes in the door, it's 750 she can make, and I'm bringing them 5, 6, 7 days. So in that first 90 days, she's pouring into them. Harold runs some of our referral accounts like Zillow Flex, Zillow Offers, and open houses. He gets overrides on all those. He's taking a piece of that every time a flex deal closes. So he's paid on that as well. So he wants to do it. ISAs obviously are paid on appointments, contracts, and closings, so they're tied into the results of the business. Like they write their own paycheck. My head of sales, Chase, he's going to override on all traditional transactions, and so it's developed for them to effectively create their own pay structure from the sales end to it. Now, the tricky side of it is in the not sales end to it. That's the easy button.
That's the one. Okay, here we go. The other shoe drops.
Yeah, operations is tough, right? And it's very like checklist oriented, things like that. But you can find ways to incentivize. My TCs get a spliff on every closing. They get a spliff on reviews, things that are helping our business, right? So we track how many reviews we got every month, and we'll give them some money and, on it. And every transaction that closes successfully, they'll get some money on it. And I don't know the exact numbers. I think it's like $25 a review and $50 per closing plus their base. I'll tell everybody, I don't care. And then, but what I did that they loved the most is I invested like 30 grand in them last year to build a bunch of automations to allow their job to be easier. So sometimes it's not about putting money in their pocket. Sometimes it's giving them better quality of life. And where they're, and then they got to be part of building that project. They were needed so much because I don't know a damn thing about a contract. Okay. So I got the engineers in place and I worked with the TCs and we built the listing coordinator, and we built that out together, and they own that process. They know that process, and they're ingrained in the team. They're extremely important to the team. So you got to get them involved in things like that's why I say I'm so transparent. Like, I don't sit in a war room with Veronica and make decisions and try to be sneaky this and sneaky that. Like, hell no. I admit when I'm wrong. I tell everybody what the hell I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and where I'm going, because truly, John, I think about this every day. When they signed that contract to work with the Figueroa team, they told me, Eric Perez, that I'm putting my future in your hands. And I feel that responsibility every day, right? It's not just a job. Like, they're putting their future in your hands. So take it like that. And then, so with that being said, I invested a lot of money on them to make them scalable, right? And give them quality of life and give them a project, and they felt they were part of something. Marketing, you let the creatives run. You put the guidelines in there, but it's like, hey, you tell me what's the next idea. I'm not some like dictator that's going to be like things like, I'll have requirements to get things done, but that's a great idea. Yes, we should do it. Or no, that's a great idea. And they feel so part of it, and then we're always working on something, right? Because I'm not like super demanding. I don't micromanage, but I am the first one to check you because I check myself every morning. I have no problem having hard conversations. I live for that shit at this point. So at the end of the day, it's just like being able to keep that level of standards and developing them too. Like, I'll have Ella actually worked with me at my old company, and I gave her the referral to come on in here, right? And there wasn't much structure in marketing at the time, and things were rocky and this and that. Dude, this woman is absolutely incredible. Like, absolutely incredible what she can do. Her skill set, she can edit websites now. She does graphic design. Like, I'm pouring into them to learn that. And she got a nice raise last year. I have no problem spending when the value is there. So it's just this mentality of growth that you need to continually have, because it gives them a place to go. Right. And it's not always about the money. Like, sales, it's pretty static, man. Like, you can't modify that too much. You get too creative in sales, you stop selling. Straight up. It's the basics that work, right? It's just all about layers of accountability. But in operations, you get in part of a project that you're going to do, like, invest in them. And then in marketing, like, let them be creative. And you have to say yay or nay at the end of the day as a leader. But you got to give them that room to go, because then they feel like they manifested that. They feel like they created that, and they 100% did. So yeah, that's how I try to keep everybody. And I think about that all the time. Like, shit, like Drew. Okay, so you remember Drew, our top listing agent?
Sure.
It was like, man, I closed 40 deals by June. I don't need money and I'm bored. He's our head of acquisitions. We got funding now. He's out there hunting, finding flips for us and wholesale deals and doing all these things. And that's what he wanted to do. And I had to give him that path because you have to create for them. You have to create so they can move into it. And we screw that shit up. I can talk about, that's a great story on what we did with the listings. I screwed that shit up 15 times before we got it right, but I did it with him and I was honest with him. And we were like, damn, and now we're like boys. Every single day we work on these things together. And then Veronica gives us the freedom to do it, So it's just a matter of, like, if you're not growing, there's nowhere for them to go. They will leave you. And as they should. Yeah.
So good. I want to go back to what you said in the very, very beginning. First thing that came out of your mouth when we were talking about that was, I lead a culture of productivity. And so anyone that's listening or watching this can say, okay, great. Well, but let's go back to the nearly hour I've spent with Eric, and what you've heard is principles and consistency. So it's easy to say you lead it. The difference is, do you do it? And so here's what's happened is you are going to attract and you are going to retain people who are like you. And when you stay consistent, just like the model, which model works? The one you stick with. I watch people jump all through these hoops on every day. It's a different model. And they wonder why every day people are confused. And then when he talked about, and this is where he really lived it too, he talks about, I lead a culture of productivity. That's just the way it is. Well, then, a few minutes later into it, he says, and then I'm looking at ways to optimize the work that they're doing. It's not so much about, sure, someone can earn a raise, but I'm in optimization for productivity. And then the next thing he went to is he's got his antenna up and he's listening to really inspiration though too. You've got to keep someone inspired. You've got to allow people to go beyond just what they're doing. So many times, you didn't hear in that whole theme of when we talked about retaining employees as you grow, it wasn't money, 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 money. It was all these other elements of human behavior, human behavior, human behavior. And that's remarkable. Really, really good stuff, Eric. I love it.
Yeah. I think it was the funniest thing was like it happened to me 4 weeks ago now when Amber onboarding specialist, I was like, you get 2 VAs to help you like set up the accounts and all this stuff. And she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. So she can focus more on her incentive model of getting people productive. And these guys are costing me $6 an hour. It's nothing to me, or as the business owner or business leader, it's nothing to me, but it's so much to her.
So much.
It's so much to her,
And it will come back to, and I want people to hear this. This comes back to you being ruthlessly committed to your culture of productivity. And here's what I'm talking about with that is anyone that is probably 99% of the people that are watching or listening, you don't want more money, you want more time. Productive people want more time. And so listen to what Eric is doing. He's giving a productive human, a human that's demonstrated, I want to be in a productive environment. He's giving them more time because that's what 2 VAs do. So guess what? They can focus on expanding and going into what they see they can really do to contribute. Because people ultimately, in the end, Eric, they want to contribute.
100%. You want to have meaning. We're all looking for our meaning in this world. And I think that my purpose, I find my purpose through work. Like, I won't lie to you. I love it. To me, like, it's Saturday right now at 5:30, John. I don't want to be anywhere else. It's where I rushed from the airport, just came from Mexico to be here doing this because this like, it was when you hit me up, I'm like, absolutely, man. Like, whenever you want, because I love to do this, so it's just a matter of like, we all need meaning. We all want purpose, and we can find it through our work. You really can. I think, I don't care what anybody says, like, you can find meaning and purpose through your job. It's 100% up to your perspective of what you're doing and how you're doing it, and I think that is highly important at the end of the day. I think it's highly important at the end of the day. So, yeah.
It's really good. Well, that wraps it there. And here's what I want to wrap it with. Here's what you heard him say, contribution. He's got people around him that want to contribute. Yes, there's productivity. They want to contribute. You look at Eric, he just came off an airplane and jumped right in here in the office because this is contribution. And I'll close with this. If there's anything, I'm sure you've heard a lot, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're watching or listening, that can contribute to your business. I've watched Eric do the work. You can explore coaching with Eric at eric.cheplaklivecoaching.com. Eric, I appreciate you, honor the friendship, the relationship. And I think what's pretty neat in my work is I constantly get to learn too. And it's just that reminder of what my mentor taught me. You come with a humble, transparent, vulnerable spirit, but when you stick to principle, you're not a doormat. You're stepping into your powers in that humility. So, brother, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much, Chap. And tell Brittany I said hello.
I will, of course.
Let her know I said hello. All right.
All right, bud.
Thanks.
Thanks.